Tak, tak,
Yes.
tak, tak, tık, tak, tak, tık, 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 tık.
Satyajit Ray's first feature film, Panchali, is called Song of the Road elsewhere in the world. It was a literary adaptation, an adaptation of a very well-known novel by Bibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, and a structure which is called a Bildungsroman, where we follow the journey of a little boy, Apu, through childhood, through boyhood, into adulthood. And that's how we get the trilogy later on. But when Panchali was first planned, Ray had been wanting to make a film. Ray had been wanting to move away from the studio structure of filmmaking and the largely melodramatic sort of cinema, stage-oriented cinema that Bengal cinema at that point had, Bengal film industry at that point had. So Ray wanted to make a more realistic film. People were constantly discouraging him. But at that time, he was sent to London by the British firm for which he used to work as a graphic designer. And he spent a few months here in London and watched about 100 films, and that was his great education in world cinema, in Western cinema. And the film that inspired him the most was De Sica's Bicycle Thieves. So this style of Italian neorealism convinced him that the sort of film that he was wanting to make in India was possible. He could actually go out to outdoor locations, he could shoot in a rough and ready manner, it didn't have to be within the protected studio environment. So Ray took his unit, and he couldn't leave his job at that moment. He didn't have the funds for the film. So extraordinarily, every weekend they would go away to the villages, to the location that they had selected, and start filming. This film didn't really have a completed script. It was growing in a very organic manner. And at one point he wasn't even sure that the film would get completed. But that very famous extract where Apu and Durga are in the fields and they see the train cutting across the railway line, and the two children run across the fields to catch a first glimpse of the train. That footage was so impressive that it was already recommended to the festival circuit. And so at one point the government of India stepped in, and the film was funded and it was made possible. But what was this film about? It was about a little boy growing up in a poor villager's home in Bengal in the 1920s. And at that time, there were huge historical factors operating. You know, it was about the collapse of the rural village economy. It was about migration, about people forcibly having to leave their lands and to move to the cities. So that's the very large historical background. And the little story that is told to us is about Apu, his father and his mother, and his beloved sister Durga, who dies at the end of the film. So it's with this very simple story and a very simple narrative that Ray gives us an extraordinary cinematic experience where there is very little dialogue, there is great economy of words, the image predominates. The world famous Pandit Ravi Shankar gave the music for this film, and some of the phrases from the theme song of Panchali probably remains the best and the most familiar bits of both Ray's repertoire as well as Pandit Ravi Shankar's repertoire. For me, again, a favorite. There are several sequences which are favorites. There's the one when the monsoon breaks and Durga is standing under the trees and getting wet, after which she falls ill. But there is also that other beautiful sequence where the two children are sitting in the fields, and from far they hear the rumbling of the train. And Durga says, "There's the train coming." And then as she stumbles and falls, Apu runs forward and reaches the railway tracks. And we have the camera on the opposite side of the tracks, watching the child through the wheels as the train passes by. And a lot has been said about the train standing as a symbol of hope, as a symbol of modernity, as a symbol of industrialism. But really the story is about hope. The story is about this largely unknown future towards Apu and his family are moving.